You're already in the afterlife. Here's something that's been hidden from you your entire life. Something so obvious that its invisibility is almost perfect. You've been preparing for a transition that already happened. The moment you fear, the crossing you imagine, the great unknown you think awaits, it's not ahead of you. It's beneath you, around you, inside you right now. The boundary between life and afterlife isn't a wall you cross at death. It's a perceptual filter you've been wearing since birth, mistaking half the picture for the whole canvas. Think about this carefully. Have you ever had a moment where physical reality felt dreamlike, where the world around you seemed less solid than it should be, where time stretched or compressed in ways that shouldn't be possible? Have you ever dreamed of someone who died, and they appeared with such clarity, such presence, that you woke up convinced you'd actually been with them? Not symbolically, actually with them. They're glimpses, brief moments when the filter slips and you perceive what's always been there. The afterlife dimension interpenetrating this one, occupying the same space, vibrating at a frequency just beyond your normal awareness threshold. Here's where it gets shocking. Humanity has built an entire civilization on a false premise. We've constructed religions, philosophies, laws, and sciences on the assumption that consciousness begins at birth and ends at death. That here is separate from there. That life is the real thing, and the afterlife is the mystery waiting on the other side. You're not preparing for afterlife conditions. You're experiencing them right now. You're creating your reality through thought and belief exactly as discarnate entities do. You're broadcasting into dimensions you can't see, building structures in realms you don't acknowledge, and your refusal to recognize this keeps you trapped in limitations that were never real to begin with. The shock isn't that you'll enter the afterlife someday. The shock is recognizing you never left it. And once you see this, everything changes. Not your location, your entire relationship to existence itself. Let me show you the architecture of where you actually are. Interpenetrating dimensions existing in the same space, but vibrating at different rates, like radio stations broadcasting simultaneously through the same room. You're not tuned to one station. You're receiving 3 at once. But your attention is so fixated on the loudest one that you've convinced yourself the others don't exist. The first layer is Framework 1. This is the dimension of matter, time, biological processes, and cause and effect as you understand it. It's what you see when you open your eyes, what you touch with your hands, what you measure with instruments. But here's what most people miss. Framework 1 isn't the foundation. It's a projection, a specialized output, created by deeper processes. The second layer is Framework 2, the non-physical probability field. This is where thoughts exist before they crystallize into events, where potential futures swirl in patterns of likelihood, where your beliefs act as magnetic attractors pulling certain probabilities into physical manifestation while leaving others dormant. You access Framework 2 every time you have an intuition, a creative insight, a sudden knowing that didn't come through logical deduction. It's not mysterious. It's just operating at a frequency your physical senses weren't designed to detect. But there's a third layer most people never hear about. This is the frequency band where discarnate entities exist, where the so-called dead continue their existence, where you go every night in deep sleep, and where the larger portion of your consciousness has always been stationed. The afterlife isn't a place you go to. It's a frequency band you're already tuned into, but your attention is so narrowly focused on the physical channel that you filter out everything else. What you call life is actually a specialized focus within a broader afterlife experience, a temporary narrowing of perception for intensive physical exploration. When your body dies, you don't suddenly gain access to the afterlife. You simply stop filtering it out. The shock of physical death isn't arriving somewhere new. It's recognizing you were always there, and the physical world was the overlay, not the foundation. Think about what this means practically. The thoughts you think you're thinking privately are already broadcasting into the afterlife realm, creating structures and attracting entities. The emotions you suppress don't disappear. They accumulate in the between-life layer where you'll encounter them fully formed after transition. The fears you cultivate, the desires you obsess over, the beliefs you hold without examination, they're not contained in your skull. They're radiating outward, building environments in a dimension you're pretending doesn't exist. You're not preparing for the afterlife. You're living it clumsily, with filters on, like someone trying to navigate a vast mansion while staring through a keyhole. Every moment you delay recognizing this, you're creating afterlife conditions unconsciously. And the difference between conscious creation and unconscious creation is the difference between liberation and confusion when the physical filter finally drops. This isn't philosophy. It's mechanics. You're standing in 3 dimensions simultaneously right now. The only question is whether you're going to keep pretending you're only in one. If you're already in the afterlife, why don't you remember getting here? This is the question that stops people cold. Birth is voluntary amnesia. It's a deliberate dimming of awareness that allows for immersive physical experience. Like an actor so absorbed in a role they temporarily forget their real identity. But here's the part that's been suppressed. The teaching that explains so much suffering. The amnesia was never meant to be total or permanent. It's supposed to thin as you mature, allowing gradual reintegration of your wider identity. Children often remember more than adults because their filters haven't fully solidified yet. They speak of past lives, invisible friends, places they've never been. And what does society do? It conditions them to forget, to dismiss, to close the very perceptual doors that should be opening wider. Humanity has mistaken temporary forgetting for permanent ignorance. We've treated the birth veil as an impenetrable barrier instead of a permeable membrane, and this mistake has consequences that echo beyond physical death. And that many humans never wake up from the birth amnesia. They move from physical life to post-death life still filtered, still limited, carrying the same narrow perceptions into the afterlife environment. Imagine dying while still believing you're only a biological machine, only a personality created by brain chemistry, only a victim of random circumstances. That belief doesn't evaporate when your body stops functioning. You carry it with you into a dimension where belief is creative force. The hidden danger is this: you can be more disoriented after physical death than during life if you haven't practiced recognizing your true nature while embodied. Death doesn't automatically grant wisdom. It removes physical constraints, but it doesn't remove the psychological constraints you've built through years of conditioned thinking. The practice hidden in plain sight. Your dreams are memory bleed from the afterlife dimension. Every night, you return fully to the between-life realm. You reunite with the larger portion of your consciousness. You interact with discarnate entities. You access the simultaneous time where all your incarnations exist at once. And every morning you re-enter the amnesia, filtering the experience through physical logic that can't accommodate non-physical reality. The reason dreams feel chaotic isn't because they're meaningless. It's because you're trying to interpret non-physical logic through physical assumptions. You're trying to force sequential time onto experiences that occurred in simultaneous time. You're trying to impose physical cause and effect onto events that follow psychological causation. This is the warning made visceral. Start recognizing the pattern now, while you have the physical buffer, while you can practice navigating both states. Learn to remain conscious during dreams. Learn to question your assumptions about what's possible. Learn to recognize that the familiar sensation of waking up each morning is actually the sensation of re-entering amnesia, not escaping it. Because when the physical filter drops permanently, you won't suddenly become wise. You'll simply be fully yourself, with all the beliefs and limitations you've been cultivating for decades. If you've spent your life denying the afterlife exists, you'll face the afterlife while still denying it. And the confusion that creates, the amnesia was meant to create focus, not blindness. The forgetting was meant to allow immersion, not imprisonment. And the return to full memory was always supposed to happen gradually during physical life, not as a shock at death. You're not waiting to remember. You're choosing to forget moment by moment. Because full remembrance would require you to take responsibility for the fact that you're already in the afterlife, already creating your reality, already accountable for the thought forms you're building in dimensions you can't see. Thoughts are things, not metaphorically, literally. In the afterlife realm you're currently inhabiting, every persistent thought creates a form. Every strong emotion builds a structure, and every belief becomes an environment. This isn't poetry. It's physics operating at a frequency you can't directly perceive. Your physical reality delays manifestation, giving you time to change your mind. You think a thought, but it takes time, energy, and physical action to bring it into material form. This buffer is a mercy. It allows you to think destructive thoughts without immediate destructive consequences. It lets you explore dark possibilities without instantly creating dark realities. But the afterlife realm has no such buffer. In the between-life dimension, thoughts materialize instantly. Belief becomes environment with no delay, and you're creating in that dimension right now with every persistent thought, fear, and desire you generate. The heaven or hell you're building isn't waiting for you after death. It's under construction right now, populated by the thought forms you're unconsciously spawning through habitual emotional patterns. This is the hidden warning that most spiritual teachings soften or obscure. You're not preparing for judgment. You're building the judge, the courtroom, and the verdict with your current belief system. Let me make this concrete. Someone who spends their physical life in chronic fear creates fear constructs in the afterlife layer. These aren't symbols. They're actual forms made of psychic energy, responsive to attention, growing stronger with repeated focus. When that person drops the physical body and can no longer filter out the afterlife dimension, they're greeted by their own creations, entities of fear they've been building for decades. This isn't moral judgment. It's mechanical cause and effect, as neutral as gravity. You create what you focus on. In physical reality, the creation is slow enough to stop. In afterlife reality, it's instant and complete. Religious believers who expect a very particular afterlife create literal versions of their expectations. If you believe you'll face a panel of elders judging your worthiness, you'll create those elders from your own psychic energy. They'll appear completely real, completely independent, because you've given them form through the intensity of your belief. And they'll judge you exactly as harshly as you judge yourself, because they're made of your own consciousness.